everybody. This is your girl Pam with 2200 Taps. Y'all, I need you to hang on to your seats because we went from baby steps to basically running with this podcast, and I don't even know if I can hang on because our guest today really needs no introduction, but I'm going to butter her up because you guys get ready for this. She is the New York Times best-selling author, a mom, and wife of the legendary American sniper, Chad Kyle. Taya, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me. You did butter me up. Not necessary, but it was very nice.
Did I do good?
You did. You
All right,
did
cool.
great.
Whew, brownie points.
Yeah, exactly.
Man. Well, yeah, so we're doing a Zoom call, you guys. For those that can't see it, I'm going to be pushing this out on the YouTube channel, so you'll be able to see our pretty faces. And welcome to my house. I'm actually here in my home.
I love it. Thank you for inviting me in.
Absolutely. You can come anytime you want.
Thank you. I know I see all the musical stuff in the back there too. I love it.
Oh, for sure. And we'll chat it up after because I'm hoping to maybe put a song to this episode. And
cool.
yeah, we'll go over the logistics after that. This is really special. Okay. So I'd love to just dive right in. And, we met through our mutual friend, Kara Martin. And I met her and she's like, yeah, I'm friends with Taya Kyle. And I'm like, what? Like, how can I meet her? How can I just hug on her? Because, people know Chris as the American sniper, but I've learned to lean on Chris as a brother in arms and really lean on that stuff. And not a lot of people understand that you as a mom and a wife are holding down the fort at home. So from the bottom of my heart, can't thank you enough for just knowing that, because a military spouse, that's not an easy job.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I know it's nice to be able to shed some light on the people who are doing it today, because I know, like you said, it is a big job and they're oftentimes not seen. So I'm glad that you're recognizing them too.
Absolutely. And I didn't deploy overseas, but I know the spouses with a bunch of coasties here stateside it was pretty tough. So I can't even begin to imagine what it was like with deployments. But
yeah, and I appreciate your service too. You know that, but
absolutely,
it's worth saying again.
Absolutely. Thank you. Well, let's dive right in. The one thing I do want to talk about, because I haven't read them yet, and I promise I'm going to, but your books. You have The American Wife, and you also have The American Spirit. And I was kind of reading up a little bit about it, but can you kind of help our listeners and even me, where did that come from? Where did that stem from? And what were you trying to capture with both books?
Yeah. So, and by the way, they're on audio. I read both of them. So if that's more your thing, I get out on my tractor and I put on an audiobook, and it's like one of my favorite things to do, or sometimes music, but, audio is kind of a good way for me to do things when you're busy and driving around and probably a little ADD or whatever. That's me. So American Wife was really, American Sniper had come out, and it was something that people were certainly hungry for, and Chris had been killed, and there was more attention and more need to know about the family. There wasn't enough, and it was really Chris's genius to put it in there in the first place, the family side. And I wasn't sure about it, but I'm really glad that I followed his lead on that. And so the publisher was saying, we'd like to get it done. And I said, there's just no way. We had legal battles that it started before Chris was killed. They had continued, and we had grief, and the rough draft for the movie was turned in the day before he was killed. And there was just so many things. I was trying to make a living. And so I thought, there's just no way I can do this right now. And they said, if you just talk to Jim, who wrote American Sniper, he'll put it all on paper. Just talk to him. And I said, okay. And so I basically emotionally vomited on him for months. And then, he did. He got it on paper, and he calls it a journey of taking fear into faith. And I think that really says it really well. And as I went through that book process, book tour, speaking tour, I was meeting so many people who were opening up to me and telling me not only about the difficult things, but about these amazing things that were coming out of their tough time. So it was so inspiring to me that I felt like I should not be keeping it to myself. So I talked to Jim and said, we've got to be able to do something with this, because it's a shame to just have it end with me, that I hear these stories. I need to share them. And of course, good news doesn't typically sell very well, but we wanted to put it out there, and in hopes that the people who needed it and wanted it would find it. So it's profiles in resilience, courage, and faith. And there are 30 stories in there about people who, and it's
Wow.
all ages, all different backgrounds and different issues that they took on to do better for the world. So I love it. To me, it's really inspiring. My kids were inspired by it. And I always thought, if it helps one person, then that's good. And it helps a lot more than that. And to me, that's just a blessing and an honor that God would let me be kind of a conduit to get it out. So those are the two so far.
That's amazing. Now, let me back up. Did you say when you get out of your tractor?
I did.
Oh
I
my,
love
I
my God.
caught that.
Oh God, I love this thing. It's so funny. I just did it this morning before the sun came up and yesterday before, because here's the deal. I have a very big, sort of yard to mow, but it's like, acreage. And so I started with this little tractor and I was white knuckling it and I was so nervous. I'd never done it before. I was like scared, and it was after Chris had died. So I was pissed that I was scared and, all this stuff. And then I learned to drive it. And then I upgraded to this bat wing that like comes down like this and
Like a
it just
John
mows.
Deere?
Well, it is a Kubota. So there's like the John Deere
Yep.
people, and then there's the Kubota people. And I guess I ended up in the Kubota family. But so yeah, I just get out, and it's the most peaceful time out there, and it looks so nice when you have everything mowed. And so yeah, it was out of commission for a little bit because a tire went flat, and it's not an easy thing
Yeah.
to change a tractor tire. So anyway, I'm happy to be back on it.
That's so awesome. I just had to. I caught that. I'm like, wait, did she see a tractor? Because
I
I mean,
did.
you are in Texas, so I mean that makes total
Yes.
sense, and that's what we
Yeah.
do.
Yeah,
So
exactly. We get out with most stuff.
I
Exactly.
love that. Well,
Yeah.
cool. So I'm really interested in, and it was kind of hard because I was kind of digging through like what questions to ask, and I feel like everybody's already asked you the same questions, and I'm like, well, how am I going to do this? So we're just going to go with this next one because I'm personally interested.
Okay.
Uh, when it was time to shoot the film American Sniper, what was your role in that, and what was that like for you to work side by side with Bradley Cooper and Sienna and just Eastwood, like all these guys, to make sure that it was captured in the most authentic and intimate way, because a lot of this was a lot of intimate stuff that not many people would have known. So what was that like
Yeah.
for you?
So the rough draft was turned in the day before Chris was killed.
Hmm.
And with that, he died, and the screenwriter Jason Hall flew out, and Chris and I met him a bit earlier, and so I already had a connection with him, and we just started talking all the time about the movie and life. And bless his heart, his wife was so gracious because we'd be on the phone sometimes. I'd be working all day on projects and things, and then getting the kids um, where they felt comfortable to fall asleep, and then we would talk into the evening or the day or just whenever I could fit it in. And so he was very flexible with that. But I say all of that because it was this awful time of grief. I mean, he was there,
Yeah.
the day after Chris was killed. And so we formed this bond of reliving and grieving all at once. And so he really did the whole script. And when we turned it in, I talked to a number of people who felt like, and Bradley and Sienna, Clint, they felt it'd be more difficult for them to play real people with the real people watching
Hmm.
than to really be able to become those characters without the real people watching. And that makes a lot of sense to me because, if you're going to be someone, you can't see the real person there, or you can't embody that.
Right.
You know what I mean? It almost brings you back to the reality that you're trying not to live in. So I wasn't there. And they did invite me to the last day of filming. And my son was in second grade, and he won the spelling bee for his
Oh wow.
class. And then after you win the class, you compete at the grade level. And so the last day of filming, he was in the grade level competition. And I'm like, I mean, I'm not missing it, man. So, uh, and he won, which was amazing. So I'm so glad I didn't miss it. It was super fun. And so I never did go on the set. But I did, Bradley and Clint did fly out, and they came to our house. And walked around and kind of got a feel for Chris and spent the night, came back the next day. Sienna, I visited with a few times in Los Angeles, or maybe it was just once actually. It might have been just once. I mean, she's phenomenal. She picked it up pretty quickly,
Yeah.
and she's lovely. And I saw her a couple times after, and I haven't kept in touch as much as I probably in hindsight could have with her because she's lovely. I think she's busy doing stuff and she's got her daughter and I'm busy doing stuff, but she's really a great person. And and then of course she did a couple more, maybe one or two more movies with Bradley. So that was cool. And then Bradley and Clint have stayed, close. And so I love that brought a lot of good people together.
Yeah. I'm just, and I came across an interview and it was just like they captured, like Bradley, he captured him. So
Yep.
was that very like cathartic for you to see him and like, man, this is Chris? Was that ever like a thought or was
I
it
was
kind of,
Yeah, I was really glad that it was Bradley who did it. He was very good at it, and he really was able to get in a place spiritually where he could really absorb anything around him. And I feel like that was hugely important. And he did it so much that, he wore, the same shoes as Chris and did like he really got into it and tried to get into, well, his shoes, literally. um, and I think that there's nobody that could have done a better job. And, he even did an accent, which is something that actors really are kind of told not to do. Sienna did too. She's British and she did my weird mix of
oh,
different
wow.
places. Yeah, the accent that's kind of a mix. So they did a phenomenal job. And the thing it was most focused on during the movie was, did they capture Chris? And they did. The only thing you can't get in the movie or the book, because there just isn't time, is his humor. Oh my gosh, he always had a twinkle in his eye and he was always up to no good in some way or another. It was like he was good, 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 good. And then he was up to this mischievous, youthful side of him that's super fun. So that would have been great, but it just, you're not redoing his life, you're picking out pieces. And it just, so that wasn't the part of either one of them really. But yeah.
That's cool to hear that he still maintained like his little boy innocence in a way.
Yes.
That's really
Yes.
cool. I mean,
Yeah, I don't think we could have survived without that youthfulness and the laughter and, giving each other crap. And that's like how you feel normal,
yeah.
And if you're ever in a place where people can't laugh with you, I feel like it's terrifying because that must mean, I could be at rock bottom and if you can make me laugh, it helps. And people can because there's really nothing off limits, I'll laugh at
Yeah.
anything. So for me, it helps people realize that they're going to be okay. I mean, I've had a friend in a panic attack, and I just made her laugh because I think that it snaps you back to, oh wait, I am going to be okay,
Yeah.
um, or sometimes, my kids are crying. I acknowledge it, of course, and we talk about it, but then I try to make them laugh in the middle of it. We can get right back to crying, but in some ways it alleviates that heaviness
Yeah.
that, you can feel like you're never going to get out of it.
Oh man. Well, I can definitely identify with that. I love
Yeah.
humor. I have to laugh. It just does the soul so good. So,
It does. Yeah. I heard one woman say that she did this thing where she supported clowns, and as she said, before Hollywood made clowns awful, she said they really do great things. And she said, the best thing about a clown is he's the lowest person in the room, he or she, right? So what that does, it elevates everybody else immediately, which
mm,
I thought was interesting. I never thought about that. And there is sort of a self-deprecating part of humor that is comforting for other people because you're not competing for like a top spot. And I like that in life. And anyway, she said that laughter is like a massage for the internal organs. And I was like, that's
ooh,
actually pretty cool,
I
right?
like that.
Yeah, because
I
it is for the soul
I
too.
love massages.
Yeah, see? Yeah, you
I'm
like
gonna
that.
totally hang on to that one.
Yeah, internal, external, all the massage.
Oh man. So I actually one thing I wanted to talk about because it was really it was kind of funny when I got to hear you speak at the Marine reunion just a few weeks back or last month. You talked about how you met Chris and if you've seen the movie, it was the bar scene and you met him at a bar and all that fun stuff. But what was really hilarious to me was when you said the proposal. Like y'all were fighting
Yeah.
over who proposed to who.
Yeah.
Can you share
Yeah.
that again? Because I don't think I've ever heard that in an interview, but to hear that, I was literally getting a massage on the inside, if you will.
Yeah.
I was
There you
laughing
go.
so hard.
Exactly. Yeah. It was just silly because, we were driving to Oregon and to visit my parents, and he said something, and for whatever reason I just kind of got my back up, like, like, I don't know what it was, but and he said, what's going on? And he was the kindest person, like, he was so good, and I just didn't want to snap at him, and so it was going to take me a minute to think about something, which is rare for me. Usually especially at that age, I was like never short on words, and I'd fire back if something hurt my feelings. But I had this moment of maturity apparently in the car where I said, let me think about that. And so as we were driving, remember looking out the window, and I said, okay, here it is. I think I was 25 years old, and I had already been through this process where I wanted to be single, and I felt like God was telling me I wasn't meant to go alone. And so it was a very different place for me to be in, where I was like, well, I kind of felt like God told me I had to find someone, you know what I mean? And so that was a weird place to be. So I had to think about it. And I said, I'm not looking just to date somebody. And I don't want to know. I mean, I'm not asking you to know now. We'd only been together maybe, 3 or 4 months, but I need to know that you haven't counted me out for a long-term potential. So I just need to know that there's a possibility that you could feel that way at some point. And he said, oh, well, the way I feel about you, there isn't a day in my life I wouldn't want to spend without you. And I went, oh, right.
Good
And I
man.
melted, and and what I heard was, he wants to marry me. He wants to spend the rest of his life with me, right? And guys are like, no, not at all what he said. But women are usually like, yeah, that's what he said, right? That's literally what he said. No, okay. So there was like a, men are from Mars, women are for Venus moment. So, but I just kind of assumed that, and so off we go, and we go to my parents, had a good time, and the drive was super fun. And so we get back, and I think it was like maybe a month later, and 9/11, I'm trying to think of it. I guess it had just happened or something. And I said, so I have this crazy idea. And he was like, yeah. And then I thought, what am I doing? And I was like, never mind. No, you know what? I'm going to take that right on back. And he said, no, what? And I said, oh, I was just thinking, why don't we get married? Because I figured he basically already said it before, so why don't we just do it, right? And he's like, oh. And I was like, oh, I want to get off the phone. And he's like, wait. I was like, no, I want to get off the phone, right? And I just was like, oh, I'm so mortified. And so then I was going to see him the next day. I was living in Long Beach at the time, California, and he was in California, or San Diego, California. So I drove down to see him, and we were on the 405 freeway down there, and we were driving, and he goes, so do you want to talk about that thing? And I was like, that thing? And he's like, that thing you said on the phone the other day. And I was like, oh, the thing. And he's like, yeah. And I said, I don't know. You mean getting married? And he's like, yeah, do you want to? And I was like, well, yeah, if you do you want to? And he was like, yeah. And I said, okay. And he goes, so are we engaged? And I was like, well, I think so. And he's like, well, I got to call your dad. I got to get you a ring. Right. And so, it was hilarious. But the thing is, he would always say, that is not how it went down, Taya. That is, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure that's how it went down that day in the car. And he's like, no, he's not. And so I don't know I wish I remembered what he said went down, but that is how I remember it. And then he said, you asked me to marry you. I'm like, no, I didn't. You said in the car, he was there today. And then I just said, well, let's do it. And then it was like so, and then he always said that I robbed him of the chance to properly propose because he would have done something romantic. And I believe him, because he was a romantic guy. He'd bring roses home and do all this stuff. So, anyway, it is kind of funny because it's like the most awkward, marriage proposal thing. But, we were married a few months later, and so that was that.
You know what that reminds me of? That kind of reminds me of my grandparents, because they kept fighting on the day they got married. One would say December 9th, one would say December 10th. And we're just like, really? Like, y'all don't even remember the day y'all got married? And my grandpa's a World War II Korean War vet.
Yeah.
So who knows what happened back then? Yeah. But your story reminds me of that. But yours is a lot more funnier.
Well, yeah, but it is funny too, because I'm awful with dates. I'm notoriously awful with dates. And So we got married, I think it was the day after St. Patrick's Day, right? I think I'm looking around going, God. And he always knew, I think it's March 17th, but now I have to look and go, is it March 16th or 17th? It's whatever day isn't St. Patrick's Day of those is what day we got married. And he'd be like, I can't believe you don't remember that. And I'm like, but I do remember. I remember. It's basically the same thing. He's like, it's not the same thing. It's a different day. I'm like, yeah, but basically it's the
Oh
same.
man, it'd be a fly on the wall for those conversations.
Right?
That'd be
Yeah.
pretty
So
funny.
funny. So
Oh
funny.
well, thank you. That was awesome. I like. That's just a. I don't know. I don't know if it's a guy thing or it's a military thing or where I have no idea. But I like your story better. I like
Yeah,
your
thank
story
you.
better.
Right? Yeah, thank you. I know it's funny. It is funny because we would look at each other very often, and he'd be like, "You're that's not it," and I'm like, "I'm pretty sure that's it." Like our memories, would be like sort of different about things, but at the same time, they were close enough. And he did remember details really well, and
Yeah.
I sometimes don't. And so I would more or less just be like, "Nah, just." To poke the bear, you know what I mean? Just to get under his skin a little bit and be like, not really. When really, I probably knew if one of us had it right, it was probably him. You know what I mean? But it was just because I would watch him go, but that's not it. Like it literally didn't happen that way. And I'm like, it basically did,
That's awesome.
right?
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So we'll fast forward. So y'all got married, and then came the deployments. So
Yes.
and we know he had multiple deployments. And there was one thing you said again at the reunion that really I embraced it and I use it till this day. And it's you said it isn't me until it's me.
Yeah.
And I hung on to that because I mean I have anxiety, I have all this stuff, and sometimes paranoia around certain things, and I'm like, wait a minute,
Yeah.
what did she say? And it's been able to help me calm down. Um, yeah, I know, I'm serious. I'm like, I can totally just thank you for that. And
Oh, I love
I'm
Thank God for that because I always pray that he'll speak through me. So
oh for
it
sure.
must be that he wanted to give that message to that day because I don't always say that, but
Yeah, yeah. And my mom suffers from anxiety, has to take medication, but I don't even think I told her this, but I'll tell her that, and I have a feeling it might help
yeah.
her.
Yeah.
Um,
Because, I've heard, so one of the things I know for sure is that fear is of the enemy, right?
mhm,
Not the gut feeling, hair on the back of your neck. We got to listen to that. That's for
right.
sure. But I've heard that depression is looking backward
Yeah.
and anxiety is looking forward, right? And there are all these places in the Bible where it says stay present. Easier said than done, right? But I heard this other one that I was in your shoes, I guess. I was listening to one of our facilitators at a foundation retreat. We do work for marriages. And he said, be where your feet are. So
Ooh.
think about that, Pam. Be where your feet are, right? I was like, you know what? Be where your feet are. That means I'm not thinking about yesterday and I'm not thinking about tomorrow. I'm thinking about being right here with you right now. And that's what God tells us to do. So much so that for a while, my mantra was focus on daily bread.
Mhm.
And God said, don't save up today's bread for tomorrow. Like, give us this day our daily bread in the Lord's Prayer. He's talking about the daily manna. I will provide you with the food you need each day. And I think it's spiritual food, emotional food, energy. And
Mhm.
so for your mom too, and I have a lot of compassion for this because I grew up with my grandfather very anxious, my mom very
Yeah.
anxious, and it's and that's why anxiety and depression go together a lot, right?
Yeah.
And because life is screwy and it's going to jack you up and it's going to knock you sideways and it's going to take the rug out from under you, right?
Mhm.
We know this, but the freedom from it is that it's okay when all those things happen because every single time God's there and he already has a plan to get you out of it and he already has a plan to get you through it. And so the more that I've been hit, which is kind of interesting, right? The more free I feel. And maybe,
Mhm.
which I never thought of before, maybe it's like a boxer, right? I look at boxers in the ring and I go, why would you do that? Why would you get in that ring? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But maybe it's because they're probably like, I've taken a punch. You look at it, Taya, and you think his eye is getting this big. And he's like, I've taken that before. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
So I imagine that's sort of what the emotional journey of anxiety and depression, maybe it's like once we get hit enough, well, there's chemical too, right? I
Yeah.
mean, there can be chemical imbalances that we have to deal with chemically for sure. Um, but I do think there's something to be said for that for me with faith. And, so what you said that day was until it's me, it's not me. And really it was the only way to be with my kids, be where my feet are, and have joy with them and not be afraid that Chris was going to die, not be afraid what happens when they don't have a father, what happens when I don't have a husband, and what if, all these things that I don't have any control over. So it was like, well, then I'm just going to say it's not him. And until they tell me it's him, it's not him. I'm going to live every day knowing that he's alive and he's well. And if somebody shows up my door and tells me he's not, then it begins, right? But there's nothing I can do to make it better. There's nothing I can do to make it go away. And, there was nothing we could do to prevent Chris's death the day he died. And I'm so glad that I didn't spend that time being anxious before he was killed, that I spent the time being where my feet are. I spent my time enjoying him.
Being present.
That's the biggest gift.
And that's what I was going to actually ask, how home life was for you during his deployments, with the kids,
Yeah.
and did it change, or what that looked like for you?
Yeah, it was really interesting because it changed every single time. The first time I was single, no kids. Second time, first son. Um, Third time, I get some kind of mixed up. I think it was third time, maybe it was just my son again. And then my daughter was the last one when I had two. And then there were some, those are the on the books deployments. And then there's the other stuff, and there's the training stuff and all the others in between. And so it was pretty constant. But I find that it always changes. And that's why it's the same with any service job, right? You change when you're serving, and the person at home is changing just because you're changing, just because you're growing as people and you're having different experiences.
Right.
And then relationship dynamic is changing. And it just, there is no way to, there's no way to predict or get in a routine where your deployments are routine. They're just not, they never are. So I think your adaptability has to be, you start to develop a good sense of adaptability, I guess.
Yeah, and I'd imagine too as a Navy SEAL, because those guys, there's a lot of stuff that we don't know.
Yeah.
You just know that they got to go to work,
Yep.
and they're not going
Yep.
to tell you where they're going, how long, none of that. It's just,
Right.
I'll see you when I see you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's just it blows my mind, and to think of it in that capacity too, going back to being the one holding down the fort at home. That's just incredible. My heart again to you, because I don't know if I could do it, and I understand a little bit of it, and
Yeah.
I'd be like, I
Well,
don't know what it is.
I don't know that I could be in the Coast Guard or anything else either. It's a different life.
It is different life, but I'm so glad to hear that he had such a wonderful wife and family back home that he knew he can come home to and be safe with.
Thank
It's
you.
really
I
good to hear
appreciate
that.
it.
Of course,
Yeah.
and
Thank you. I mean, I was far from perfect. There's a lot of things that I wish I had known sooner, so I could have been better. And
mhm,
that's one of the reasons why we have our foundation for military and service marriages, because I think a lot of people are, if you just tell them how they can do it differently, they will.
mhm.
The hard part is when you don't freaking know what to do differently. And you're like, I'll do anything, just tell me. And you don't know, because military marriages are just different. They
Yeah.
just are. And same with, first responder marriages. They're different than the civilian population. So who are you going to go to for help?
Yep.
And you're not going to go to the people that you serve with, because they're either going through the same things, or you don't want them to tell the command that you're having a hard time, because there's this whole
Yes.
like,
Mhm.
right? There's this whole thing in the
It's
military.
a
Oh, sure,
stigma.
get help. Yeah, but oh yeah, it's not.
That's your
And it's sort of
career.
like yeah. I mean,
Mhm.
and they say it's not, but everybody knows that that's not the case.
It's not the case. I mean,
Yeah,
and aside, and I'm gonna kind of sidetrack just for a second, because I was talking to Dan Lombardo, who's a CEO of excuse me, chairman of the board for 22 Kill, and
yep,
I interviewed him. I'm like, Dan, how do we do this for the guys that have like above top secret clearances who can't say any of this stuff? Like, how do we get
yeah,
them help? And
yeah,
and it all came back to, it's got to come back to the command. It's got to come back to the command, the safe
yep,
place. And so yeah, it's just it's a catch 22, because it's like, hey, we're here for you, but if you're mentally unstable, bye
yeah.
bye. You
Yep.
know.
And the catch 22, the other part of that is it's up to the command. Well, then it depends on who's the commanding officer. The
Mhm.
whole dynamic is different depending on the human being in that position. And even if the human being is telling you one thing, big government's different, and they're not
Yeah.
guaranteed to stay in that position. So there's a whole mentality behind it. I do think that it's worth risking it to get help. No matter what,
Yeah.
you've got to go get help. And I think there are more organizations now who recognize that and are giving people suicide prevention help with anonymity. But I don't think I'm a firm believer that the answer is just not in the same bureaucracy that you got the
No.
problem in. It just doesn't work that way. I mean, do it if that's your only hope. Do it for sure, absolutely, because there's hope there. Get it. It doesn't matter the cost. Don't kill yourself. Get the help.
Right.
Uh, and the more we in the private sector can provide that help, the better. But it's a brutal world. The CIA actually has this philosophy from the top down. I don't know if the guys on the ground believe it, but their thing is we celebrate your physical fitness. So why wouldn't we celebrate your mental fitness? If you go to the gym to break it down and build back up physically, why wouldn't we do the same thing when we see you go in mentally to break it down and build back up? We should, and we should consider it, this force readiness thing. And so that's what they're trying to say. But again, I hope that it sticks because that's the way it ought to be. That's the truth.
Yeah.
We all need a time to tune up mentally and spiritually and emotionally. It's unrealistic to think that we're not going to need that.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the whole purpose of this podcast is to bring on people that have gone through some serious stuff, but how they've been
Yep.
able to overcome it. Because if people isolate and they're not comfortable getting help or talking to somebody, hey, listen to a show, listen to an episode. You're not alone.
Not alone.
You're
And
not
there's always
alone.
hope. That's the thing for me with God, truly, the more that came on my shoulders, the more I realized, and I know, I think, faith is something where you grow into it and you start to see God actually is very intimate in your life and he's very
Absolutely.
detailed. In the beginning, sometimes you go, is he going to do this though? Or does he care about that? Or am I worthy of this or that? And I think the more you give him a chance, the more he has the opportunity to show off for you, and say, yes, yes, I am. And I do love you. And the more negative things that have come my way, the more I've been able to say, but God knows me and that's enough. And he truly knows me because I've reached out and said, please come in. You know what I mean? Like this, just change me, help me. And he loves to do that. So at that point, I mean, he knows us anyway without us inviting him in, but when we invite him in, at least we have the knowledge of it. So when we feel lonely, when we feel like there's no hope, that goes out the window. There's always hope and somebody always knows you and it's God. And truly you can lean into that. It sounds, if you haven't experienced it, it sounds like, unicorns and rainbows,
Yeah.
but you just have to experience it once to know it.
Oh yeah, and I love what you said because I say it too. Is he shows off. If you're really
Yeah.
listening and you're watching, like he will show up and show off, and
Yes.
it's the coolest thing ever. And it's just
Yes.
a
I
it's
totally agree.
I've seen it happen to me a few weeks ago with something that happened in the studio. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be big. This is gonna be good. But
That's awesome. Do you want
yeah.
to tell the story?
Are you okay with me telling it?
Yeah. Tell
Okay,
me.
cool. So I was I have a there's a an instructor at the school that I go to at Media Tech Institute. He's also, he's a big producer, songwriter, beat maker, and last year I was able to put some guitar on a song and it was going to be for a movie and it got finished, but I hadn't heard anything of it. So I didn't hear the song for about a year. And the other day or a few weeks ago, something just told me to play it again and I had it on repeat. I'm like, "Ooh, this is hitting a little differently. This is really
Yeah.
good." I get to the school and the same instructor, he's working on like editing a movie. And I'm like, dude, is that the movie? He's like, yeah, check this out. And then he put it on a clip and it was our song on part of the movie clip.
Whoa.
I buckled at my knees. I'm like, dude, I was just listening to it on repeat.
Oh my
And
God.
yeah, and the director was there and when everybody left, he told me that he's almost done editing it and they're gonna pitch it to a major, network. I'm
Yay.
like,
That's so cool.
dude. Yeah, so it's just cool. But how the song came about is really special. And that was a total God thing because it was
Yeah.
all done on a MIDI keyboard, all the electronic instruments, and just people that played certain instruments kept, hey, do you want drums? I'll lay down drums. Hey, do you want this? And then I came in. I'm like, hey, you want some guitar?
Yeah.
So we were able to organically replace most of the electronic instruments with real instruments without
Wow.
that even being the original intention. And
Yep.
it's so cool. And I love music. I love being a part of. It's like a baby. I keep telling people making music is like having a baby because
Yeah.
you don't know what it's gonna look like at the end, but you know it's gonna be beautiful.
Yes,
And
that's so
you
cool.
know,
And like what you said about how God already knew that he was going to use this track in this movie, right? And so you guys all show up, and then he's like, send in the guitar, send in the drum, send in
yeah,
this. And you guys are like, what?
yeah,
That's the adventure of God. That's the miracle and the excitement of watching him. And
it's so
it's
cool.
interesting we're talking about movies because lately I feel like God is this conductor, right? And he's writing this symphony, and he's, just it's like this beautiful song that he's like pulling all these mixes in together, and then you feel like you're living this, I guess symphony is the way I would say it, but like he's just this amazing conductor that has more instruments and melodies and notes than
Hmm.
any of us can imagine.
And I can't
It's
wait to get
cool.
to heaven because we're gonna be playing a lot of music up there.
Oh gosh, yes. I know. I just finished this book called Imagine Heaven. Have you
Mm-hmm.
heard of it?
Mm-mm.
I highly recommend it. It's about near death experiences, but the guy does it in a way that he wasn't really sure about people saying they had near death experiences, and so he really took a scientific approach and broke it down, and was very selective about. Kind of discounting certain people for certain reasons, just so that he could try to make sure he had the most pure data that was the best chance we have of having it unaltered for any reason, like wanting to just tell a story, or wanting to be a part of something or whatever. And it's so fascinating how many accounts are the same, and they don't know each other and they don't know anything about it, right? And one person has a little bit of something that was maybe in the Bible, and another person, but you put it together and it's like this big mosaic of what heaven is. And some of them that weren't in scripture at all totally align, which
Oh,
kind of
that's
tells you,
so
I mean,
cool.
there's no other way that they could have perfectly aligned it. And what are the chances of people that don't know each other, have never heard of it? I mean, it's pretty fascinating. And it talks about some that weren't so positive
Yeah.
experiences. So it's just neat. I recommend it.
I'm gonna. I love audiobooks, so I'm gonna totally be listening to
There you go.
that. That's because
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the narrator on that one. I will say that that was
really.
a little bit. Yeah, yes, but with all due respect, but it was worth it. I still did it on audio and was like addicted to it. So who
Hmm.
cares? Yeah, the material's so good. You got to do it. Audio. I never read the book physically. I just did audio. So
That's so cool. I'm
do it.
totally gonna do that. I'm totally. Thank you for
Good.
that.
Do it. You like it. Let me know what you think about it.
Yeah, for sure. I might even narrate it myself. If he's that bad, I might just have to redo it myself and push
Do
it out
it.
that way.
Do it. Yeah, exactly. I don't know what the author says about that, but I don't know copyright laws or
Yeah.
whatever. But
I know
eh,
copyright. We'll figure it out.
yeah, figure it out. I'm down. Call the author and be like, yeah, bro, can I just
Yo, come on.
let me just have a chance at this. We'll have two different,
You need that. You need that female delivery too, because you need that
yes.
compassion.
Yeah. And I think the thing is sometimes, I mean, I love doing the audiobooks, and I realize that there's artistic creative license with it. And
Yeah.
um, I appreciate and understand the desire to do different voices
Mm.
for different people in the book. I just don't know that it was necessary all the time, especially if they don't, like Harry Potter books, they could do that. And the guy that did the narrations, like ridiculous. Every character sounded totally like a different person. And, but when it's like Taya trying to go high voice and Taya trying to go low, you know what I mean? That's when I'm like, maybe Taya shouldn't do that. Maybe leave it to the other people.
Well, if ever you
Yeah.
want to do any kind of voiceover work, let me know. I can
Oh,
totally.
I love it.
We could set it up.
Oh
Totally.
yeah, I absolutely love it. I being in a studio like that where it's just soundproof and it's just you and a hot, cup of tea and you're just reading something. Oh yeah, a
Oh,
little piece of heaven.
well, next time you're up my way, we got to get you out to the school so you can see the studio.
Yeah, I would love
It's
to.
it's a amazing history, and I'll tell you more about that after this interview.
Okay, cool.
But I'm so happy. Oh, I'm getting so excited.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna rein it back in. That was
Okay.
some good stuff. I think somebody needed to hear all that for sure.
I hope so.
I
I
think
hope so.
I
Yeah.
believe so.
Yeah.
So where do we live off? I had to put some sticky notes so I don't lose my place. Okay,
Yeah.
so when Chris passed away, how were you able to handle all that? It was an untimely death. He passed away here stateside. I mean, and it's your partner. It's the man that you're doing
Yeah.
life with. It's the father of your kids. It's your husband.
Yeah.
How did you overcome that? Like what? It just I can't
Yeah.
even imagine.
Yeah, it's and of course our friend Chad was killed with him too, which added
Yeah.
another layer. And he and Chad's wife and I are very good friends, and they had a daughter. And the only way to say that I got through is the grace of God, because and people. God sent a lot of really amazing people around us. We really have a great community where I live, and friends who showed up. And I think too, the beauty in this is that, I think of it like an amputation. And
Mm.
if you're a parent and your kid has an amputation, you're going to prepare them ahead of time the best you can, but not all at once. And then you're going to be with them during the amputation, and you're going to be with them after, and you're going to show them that there's a lot of life that they need to live. You're going to let them heal first. You're going to let them take it, a little bit at a time. And then, so I look at it and I think, well, that's what God did, because I saw people living out my worst nightmare. They lost their spouses, and I was able to try to show up and care for them and learn. In doing that, I learned about widowhood, not intentionally, just by being there. And then through time, I learned about, wow, it's been 3 years since Ryan died, and yet it feels like yesterday. And, watching this whole, it just, all of these things, how time morphs, how time is different, how the soul's journey is different from your, journey of your feet on the planet. And it's, it was all such a mix, so that when Chris died, there's this thought that I was like, okay, like it's me, my number's up, right? Like it was almost like, I don't know how to describe it other than like my number was up. Like it was my turn almost, not turn, that's not the right word, but like I'd watched it before, and it was like, and now somebody handed it to me, and I was like, oh shit, not me. You know what I mean? Like, no, no, no. And then you also know, okay, I better get tough. I remember in that moment thinking, buckle up, right? Like you better get strong real freaking fast, because this is going to be, it's going to suck for a long time. And not those words, but kind of that sentiment. And I just kind of got after it. And I tried to outrun it for a long time, right? Like literally that night I ran out my door, when I tried to take care of my friend, Leanne, until her husband was, until we got the notification that he died too. We knew there was another body, but not sure, not confirmed that it was him. And so as soon as there was nothing else I could do, and she had people around her, I looked at my friends who were police officers, and I was like, I'm going for a walk. You don't need to come, but I need to get out. Like I need to go. Like I can't stay in this house. And my children were at a friend's house already, because we didn't know Chris had died. We just knew that something was wrong. And so I called my friend and just said, hey, can the kids have a sleepover? And, I just got some things to figure out. And so I just went out the door, and I couldn't walk. I just ran, like I just sprinted. And there's something in that feels like it just continued for years. It was just like I sprinted for a long, long time on adrenaline and shock, and please don't let it stop, because I can't sit with this pain, and the pain comes through every day anyway. And I cry all day on and off, but it was like, don't stop and let yourself cry. Just let the cry come while you're doing other stuff. Because if you stop, it's going to swallow you whole. That's kind of how it felt. And then you learn in time to try to have the courage to let yourself. And it's a long, long journey. Long journey.
I can, yeah. I mean, and
Yeah.
people have been able to keep up with you just based on interviews and, uh,
Yeah.
you know, because when it happened and the funeral services and all that, I mean, it was like that instant. How do I put it? Like becoming famous overnight, but for the
Yeah.
shittiest reason you could imagine.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah. It was
so
very interesting.
so people have been able to follow you and just again, God bless you. And this is just
Thank you too.
it's I'm speechless. You
Yeah.
can't
Right. I
you
know.
can't like I don't know if I can ask the next question because
Yeah.
that's very real for a lot of people and the running part, you're physically and you're literally and figuratively running.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah.
I can totally identify with that. Running from your pain, running from your demons, running from whatever, but at the end of the day they're always going to be there until you confront them,
Yep.
right?
Yep. You
And
have to sit there because that's where the courage is that it's not going to swallow you. It feels like it will, but it won't.
right.
And I think the other thing is not escaping into alcohol. You know, you mentioned 22 kill, and almost every one of those suicides is there was some alcohol or drugs involved. Because so for me it's like, also just you gotta resist, don't do that, because that little bit of judgment that you let go of when you do that changes everything sometimes. So
Oh,
it's trying not to escape into that, right? You can escape into exercise, you can escape into the outdoors and nature, conversations. But the escape, the other places, man, those are really dangerous.
yeah. And we often find people try to fill that hole in the heart with something. And
Yep.
again, it's through alcohol or drugs
Yep.
or some sort of addiction, right?
Yep.
Something that's not going to fill it with purity.
Yep.
So,
And I mean, it's understandable, right? I
yeah,
totally get it. And I don't, gosh, I have such compassion for it. I get it. I mean, I smoked cigarettes because I was like, well, I'm not going to do any drugs and I'm not going to drink and I got to still function. And so it was nicotine, nicotine, nicotine. I didn't like myself doing it. I'm allergic to it, which is comical, and I didn't care. I was like, let me breathe. And it would force me to, like, you know what I mean? And my throat was always feeling like it was closing. So it would force it. So I understand that. It's just trying to find the thing that is the least damaging.
so what pulled you through it, or what is pulling you through it if you're still, because I would imagine you still have your moments. Um,
Yeah,
but
not
what
very
is it?
many anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, it's 7.5 years, and I do have my moments but it's usually when I'm like going back in time and thinking about something for a particular reason. But I don't typically have those moments. What I have now is what would be a cry is just a little bit of a lump in my throat, and I've gotten pretty good at being able to predict what's going to hit when,
Hmm.
compartmentalize, not take on certain things, just like you get kind of good at it as a puzzle. And then and then those things that take me by surprise usually just give me like a little bit of a lump, and I know how to, like a Rubik's cube, put it somewhere,
Nice.
and then I can go get it, when it's a decent time. And I try to go back, if I get that, I try to just go back and process so that I'm not doing the Rubik's cube and it like grows somewhere. um but I really do feel good now. I was thinking, even just this week, I was like, I feel like it's safe to say I'm healed. I'm healed. It's never going to go away and it's never perfect,
Mhm.
but it's sort of like that scar and that wound is like, it's sealed up. There's a scar now, but at least it's sealed up, and, you can rub it and it's not, you know, um, on fire when you do it. I mean, there's a process. So um, I think I don't know. I know I have a little bit emotionally left to do, right? Like, I don't date and I don't get in relationships and all that stuff. So clearly there's a spot, right, that's
Right.
not healed. But I'm like, okay, I mean, one thing at a time, people, right?
Right.
Like, I got the scar, let's just leave it there. So I suppose, if I'm very honest, there are probably some things that, there are probably a lot of things. But for day to day, I feel pretty good.
That's awesome. That is cool. And that's just another. It's like you got to heal from this, and then
Yeah.
and then then you're going to be able to see a little clearly that, oh, now I got to work on this.
Yes.
So
Yes.
in the dating and all that stuff, just the thought of it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just
Yeah.
going to take time. And I mean, you're
Yep.
you're a busy mom. I mean, you got your
Yeah.
kiddos.
Yeah.
So, uh, you said you were talking about, is it the Chris Kyle Frog Foundation? Is that still up and running?
Yes, and so it is. We're just going through a name change. So we're
Okay.
changing to, Taya and Chris Kyle Foundation.
Okay.
The big thing is Service Family Strong.
Okay.
Service Family Strong.
Same mission though, same concept
Yep.
of helping.
Same thing. Yep. Honoring God and country by serving the marriages of those who serve, and by serving the marriages, we serve the family.
Oh,
So
that is
it's
so cool.
yeah. There's 80% of the service suicides are relationship related.
Oh God, I did not know
80%.
that. I didn't know that.
Yep. So yeah, and it's understandable in some ways, because there's if you don't know how to fix it and you're desperate to fix it, but you don't have the right tools, and the world is ugly and you want one safe place, it's understandable. The thing is, there's always a way out of it.
Hmm.
There's always a way out. There's always hope. And you just have to know it and hang on one more day, one more evolution, one more sunrise.
Yeah.
So you get there.
Well, if you need any help once all that's finalized, established, let me know. I'll be more than
Yeah.
happy to just Any which way capacity you let me know, I'm all yours for sure.
Thank you.
Of
That's
course,
so nice. Thank you.
of
Yeah.
course.
Maybe
Yeah.
we'll do some music stuff.
Well, I might know somebody.
I know you might know
I might
somebody
know
really
somebody
good.
who knows somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Well,
I know
cool.
I can't wait to hear more stuff that you've done.
Oh, it's I'm up and coming for sure. I'm more behind the
Yeah.
scenes. Um,
That's what I want to hear. I love being behind the scenes and knowing what people behind the scenes are doing. It's interesting.
it'll be fun. We're gonna have to get you to the studio so you can get your hands on the
Yes.
board, and it'll be good.
Yeah.
It'll be good.
Super fun.
Well,
Yeah.
cool. So I am curious. What have you been up to lately? Like with now that the kiddos are older, and what does life look like for you now as just a mom doing life?
Yeah. So we have Warrior Collections, which is a jewelry line, and so Warrior Collections jewelry blog, and then I've been doing Warrior Talks, which is we're just in the process of getting them edited, and then we'll have them up on a YouTube channel and on the Warrior Collections website. But they're different, pretty well-known people who are talking about their warrior moments and
Hmm.
how they got through. And Warrior Collections is about being on mission from God. Like this life is just a mission,
Yeah.
and we have to figure out how to keep our faith through it. And then American Wife is still with a studio project, and so hopefully that'll be. My little dog just got back from the groomer.
Oh, wait. Did they
Hopefully
paint her?
cut him a little short.
Did they
Yeah.
did they dye her or him?
No, they did him, and they just cut him really short.
He's so
He's
fluffy.
he's really, really fluffy. I meant to tell him don't do it so short,
God.
but that's okay.
He's so
That's
cute.
Nugget. But anyway, so
Oh, that's funny.
um, yeah. What was I don't even remember what I was. I don't remember what I was saying. The dog comes
I
in
don't
with
know.
all
The
thoughts of.
squirrel got me too.
Yeah,
What were we
exactly.
talking about?
Oh, what do I do? It's Warrior
Oh,
Collections,
yes.
and then yeah, and then the foundation. I volunteer for the foundation, but I run it, so it's like a full-time volunteer job. And then raising my kids and doing sports and life and all that good stuff with them. And then I serve on another board called Triptych that is looking at getting better quality content for film out there. And then American Wife, the TV project. And then I got a children's book series that I'm trying to get published, but I haven't been able to put as much energy into it lately
That's
because
awesome.
all the other things. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's so cool. That's
thank you.
exciting.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. It keeps me busy. And I'm
Hmm.
trying not to be too busy because I don't think that's healthy for people. It's not
Yeah,
my best trait. I like to be, I like to be productive, but I also don't want to be so spent.
absolutely. I can identify with that right now because I have had the week from not hell because it's a blessing what I get to do,
Yeah.
but man, I need another one of me. I need a clone
Yep.
for sure.
Yep. You do. You do. Exactly.
Cool. Well, we're almost done, but the last question I wanted to ask you, because I ask a lot of my guests, if not all my guests, has music helped you? Has it impacted you, or helped save your life? And if so, how?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think music is incredible. And I believe there's music in heaven. I believe that our soul is meant to respond to music. And I think we have to be careful what kind of music.
Yeah.
You know, um, because it really can get into the soul. I think it can be destructive or beautiful, like anything else in life. And so I never used to really listen to Christian music, but I started to a couple of years ago, and I had to really search to find the stuff that I liked because a lot of it just wasn't my thing. I
Hmm.
just didn't. But Zach Williams, I love the way he brings it with Christian music, and we talked about Micah Tyler, right? Isn't
Yeah, Micah
that Mike?
Tyler.
Micah Tyler, he does acoustic version of Different. That's really cool. And Zach Williams does a song, which if you don't know it, look it up, Stand Up. It's got a
Hmm.
great beat. Stand Up by Zach Williams.
I have to look that up.
Um, so yeah, I do find music is very, very moving, and it can take you back in time in a second. It can speak to you. It can energize you. It can soothe you. It can make you cry. It can make you happy. It can make you want to dance. I mean, if you think about it, we're all different energy levels, and
Yeah,
there's different realms in the spiritual realm, earthly realm, and there are vibrations and all this stuff. And I feel like music is one of those things. It's like it does something to your energy level that's really cool.
cool. Do you have a favorite artist?
I don't know. I don't know actually because I like so many different songs. My
Yeah.
music taste is really eclectic. I mean, I like, from back in the day, Emmylou Harris, and I like Lauren Daigle, and
Hmm.
for a while, 10 or 15 years ago, Kenny Chesney music. He's got Old Blue Chair, one of
I
those
love
songs that,
that song. I
right? It's
love that
very
song.
philosophical, and so I feel like there's a wide range. The only things I don't really dig is I don't heavy metal, I'm not into it. And sometimes classical sadly gets on my nerves a little bit. I wish it didn't, but it sometimes does. So
I'm over
there you
here
go.
trying to hide my shirt as I'm wearing an ACDC shirt.
Well, AC/DC, everybody loves. That's a little bit different. I mean, I'm talking like liquid metal, that I'm just like, oh, but
Yeah.
AC/DC, yeah. I mean, I'd be so uncool if I didn't like a little AC/DC.
Right?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Plus, it's just hip to be wearing AC/DC because it's like, I don't
ACDC.
know. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about it. There's, memes with, what is that? The little kids shirts that say ABCD and the ACDC writing.
Yes.
And yeah,
Oh, if I had a
when you're at
kiddo,
that level,
oh
yeah,
yeah. I would
legit.
totally, totally, yes. What was a
It would
toss up
happen.
between this or Led Zeppelin? So I was like,
Both are good. Both are good. I'll go down with both of those. I like it.
oh, we need to hang out. This is gonna be fun times
Yes.
for
Yes.
sure.
We would have a very good time.
Well, we are done. So
Okay.
thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. This was a lot
Yeah.
of
Thank you
fun.
for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you're doing this to inspire people. It's good stuff.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm working on a little secret with the podcast, and my hope is that we can make it even bigger. I won't say how. I'll probably tell you here
Yep.
when we get off. But
Okay.
yeah, so thank you so much for being here. Absolute blessing.
You're welcome. I want big success for you. It'd be fun.
It'd
Fun to watch you fly.
be awesome. Thank you. And
Yeah. Thank
oh
you.
yeah, and guys, I hope you enjoyed this podcast as much as I have. I have the biggest, like, excuse my French, like the shit eating grin face because this is just, it's a special moment, not just for the podcast, but our mission. Because if there's any story that we could potentially capture that shows like somebody going through some serious stuff to overcoming it, Taya, you're one of our biggest guests,
Oh,
and
thank
and one of the biggest stories that we've been able to share. And
you.
every story that we've had has been amazing, and this one's just as good. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Sorry,
you. I appreciate
absolutely. All right, guys, we're done. Make sure to subscribe and follow. Peace out.